Ever so often, we hear a tragic tale surrounding the burdens of being a child star. These tales are often centered around how fame affects young celebrities as they are thrust into the spotlight, and what happens when children are forced to grow up too soon. Today, we will be going over the story of two boys that are not often remembered enough due to their careers' quick rise and fall, which span between the late 90s and early 2000s. That era in the music industry is known as a golden age, even though many people who began their musical run during that era have since fallen off and failed to remain relevant in this new age of music. As usual, once artists fall off, they are hardly ever mentioned or recognized. They might only be remembered in a wave of nostalgia, and their stories, at times, remain untold for years. This is the little-known and highly overlooked story of the tragic end of a rap group made up of two cool young boys with swag and style. Kris Kelly and Chris Smith, famously known as Kris Kross. Kris Kelly and Chris Smith were born on August 11, 1978 and January 10, 1979, respectively. The two were born and bred in Atlanta, Georgia. The two boys attended Woodward Academy in College Park, Georgia, where they met and became best friends in the first grade. Their friendship grew and lasted quite some time. And then, one fateful day in 1991, when Kelly was 13 and Smith was 12, they were approached at Greenbrier Mall by producer Jermaine Dupri. Jermaine Dupri is the son of Michael Malden, a veteran music producer and talent agent. At 19, Dupri was already a musical agent in his own right, on the lookout for a new act. Today, he is a mega producer, responsible for discovering some of the biggest musical acts that dominated radios and stages in the 1990s and early 2000s. He would later go on to create and manage the record label So Def Recordings. When asked years down the line why he was so interested in signing two minors that knew nothing about music, Dupri said that he was driven by a spirit of adventure and a criminal level of optimism. But overall, it was the swag with which the two boys carried themselves. He further went on to say that it was an easy, natural swag he still hasn't seen replicated to date. They were like the word swag before it was even being used. Their mentality was, I don't know what they were on. To be that young, I never saw anybody that was that focused on being cool, he continued. He also recalled that girls working at the cookie company in the mall were so affected by the aura and presence of the boys that they offered them free cookies. They looked and felt like stars, which was enough for Dupri to sign them. Dupri followed them at the mall until he was able to hand his business card to Kelly's mom, Donna Kelly Pratt, who also took a chance on him despite her thinking of him as only a child. Dupri signed the young boys to Columbia Records and went to work on educating them about music and the ins and outs of the hip-hop scene. Even at 19, he was an expert at recognizing and molding an act. The boys took to his lessons quickly, and infusing that natural and easy swagger they possessed into their art, quickly became ready for their debut on stage. They chose the name Kris Kross. First, they were both named Kris, and second, Kross was a former nickname of Kelly's. They were also known as Mac Daddy and Daddy Mac, which was, at that time, a slang among preteens and teens for people who had swag. Their debut single, Jump, written and produced by Dupri himself, was released on February 6, 1992. The song was a sample of Michael Jackson's I Want You Back, which was a strategic move, as all the young acts at the time emulated the Jackson 5. Another strategic move that put the song on people's radar was the fact that it was a diss track. Dupri intentionally took shots at previous young acts that had fallen off, and every act that had paved the way for Kris Kross. The opening lines of the rap were, "Don't try to compare us with another bad little fad." This line was a shot aimed at a young music group of 5 called Another Bad Creation. The song was a success and quickly climbed to the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100, where it remained for 8 consecutive weeks and a total of 21 weeks on the chart. And just like that, Kris Kross became famous overnight. With Dupri as their guide, the two boys confidently took on the hip-hop world. Dupri understood the role of fashion in hip-hop culture and encouraged the boys to make signatory fashion moves by wearing their clothes backwards. It worked. Their singles spread their name everywhere, but their bold take on fashion cemented their names and identity in hip-hop. The papers referred to their style as cross-dressing, using the K unique to their stage name to distinguish it from the gender-bending term. With the impact of their single, swag, and bold new take on fashion, Kris Kross hit the hip-hop scene running, and they became an act to anticipate. Following the success of their debut single, Kris Kross released their first album not long after, on March 31, 1992. The album, Totally Crossed Out, did not disappoint the audience that had been looking out for them since Jump. It sold 4 million copies, cementing it as a quadruple platinum selling album. The boys were launched further into the spotlight and began appearing in shows like Good Morning America, The Arsenio Hall Show, The Today Show, and the likes. They were invited on Michael Jackson's Dangerous World Tour in 1992 and appeared in the music video for his single, Jam. While enjoying the benefits of their new status, some people began to worry about the boys. This was because their album had a mix of relatable preteen themes and some inappropriate adult themes. They rapped about missing the school bus, but also rapped about things like drugs and drive-by shootings. Though everyone knew that Dupree was responsible for all their music, it still didn't feel right for them to rap about such things, especially because both boys grew up quite comfortable and unexposed to such things, being from stable middle-class families with access to private school education, and also because they had an audience among children their age across all races. Of course, such rap lines were in homage to popular hip-hop culture. Their follow-up album, The Bomb, released a year later in 1993, continued their reign as one of the era's most successful young hip-hop acts. This album also went platinum and sold 4 million copies worldwide. It was regarded as a bit of a letdown from their first album in terms of sales, but their audience was still very impressed with what they delivered. Despite the earlier concerns about the adult themes in their first album, Kris Kross stuck to their stories of hip-hop culture, which may have been much more real for them at the time compared to the previous year, after they had interacted with and been fully accepted in the world of hip-hop. The boys stayed on top of their game despite many other young acts falling off. One thing that has been a constant with successful young acts is that most of their musical identity was based on their youth. Usually, if their music failed to evolve as they grew older, they would become irrelevant quickly. It was so common for young acts to die out that they had an estimated lifespan in the music industry. This lifespan was about 5 years. Kris Kross had enjoyed a good reign, but the 5-year prediction was beginning to creep up on their career. In early 1996, Kris Kross came out with their third album titled Young, Rich, and Dangerous. Although the album had 2 big hits, Live and Die for Hip Hop and Tonight's the Night, and became gold certified, it was considered a partial flop when compared to the heights their 2 previous albums reached. At this point, Kelly and Smith were 17 and 16 in age, respectively, and this time their album had mostly adult themes in it. Given that they were both teenage boys now in the middle of puberty, it shouldn't have been a surprise when they made sexually provocative songs and raps. However, they couldn't quite shake off the image of young, cool, cute kids with swag that propelled them to the top. Many found the adult themes distasteful and unrelatable. After the performance of their third album, news of Kris Kross began getting fewer and fewer, and slowly they fell off. Kris Kross had the exact 5-year lifespan of the typical young music act. The boys struggled with their relevance in the industry as the years passed. It wasn't easy to go from being at the top of the game, being treated as the in thing, to falling from grace just like that. Thankfully, they picked themselves up quickly and attended college. With the influence of music still shining through in their decisions, Kelly studied audio engineering and became a sound engineer, while Smith studied marketing and business management. In the later years, Kelly founded C Connection Records and did quite well for himself. Smith also founded One Life Entertainment and also experienced success. In 2013, at the 20th anniversary of So So Def Records, Jermaine Dupri's record label, Kelly and Smith reunited on the stage one last time. They rocked the crowd, and their nostalgic performance was spoken about for days after. Looking back, many believe it was a blessing that the two got to perform together one last time. Only 3 months after their reunion on stage, tragedy struck. On May 1, 2013, Kelly was rushed to the Atlanta Medical Center after he was discovered unresponsive in his home. Following an autopsy, it was confirmed that he died from an overdose of heroin and cocaine, among other hard substances. In addition, Kelly's mother confirmed that he had struggled with drugs for many years. Smith and Kelly remained best friends until the latter's death. Smith's public statement after his death said, "Kris Kelly was my best friend. He was like a brother. I love him and I will miss him dearly. Our friendship began as little boys in first grade. We grew up together. It was a blessing to achieve success, travel the world, and entertain Kris Kross fans all around the world with my best friend. It is what we wanted to do and what brought us happiness. I will always cherish the memories of the C Connection." Today, Smith is the founder of a lifestyle company called Urban Muse. He still pursues his passions in music, art, and design, but in a more personal fashion. Smith is content with life away from the public eye. That's it for our video today. What did you think? How do you think stardom affected the lives of Kris Kelly and Kris Smith? Leave your opinions in the comments section below. Make sure to like the video and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Until next time.